We are back, episode 16 from Warrior Wellness Movement HQ in Exeter, and it is Beyond the Battlefield. Like I said, episode 16. Make sure you hit subscribe before you do anything. Like the podcast, share the podcast, but definitely subscribe. It helps us. It pushes this channel out as far as possible into the veteran communities. The Beyond the Battlefield podcast is, of course, giving veterans a platform to speak, tell their stories of adversity, resilience, overcoming adversity. And on this episode, we have Mr. Andy Gallie.
Good to meet you, Ollie.
Good day. Thank you for travelling down.
No worries.
I appreciate it. And the good news is I know nothing about you other than I looked at your book, which is, of course, called From HMS to HMP, which is setting us up nicely for this conversation. We've started talking outside. And we had to shush and say, hang on a minute, let's press record and start having these conversations, because I know you've got a remarkable story and you've got a good end message as well to promote across the wider community. So give us a little background, mate, on who you are.
So, yeah, I'd say naval veteran of 13 years. The reason for the title of the book is obviously I've been to prison and massive gambling addiction. Started at a very early age. Started at 9 years old. By 13, my mum had actually called in Gamblers Anonymous. That's how bad it was. I was stealing from everywhere, taking from her, taking from family. And I would even try and shoot off from school to get to the arcade. So we lived in Falmouth in Cornwall, arcade in the town, and I would just go every opportunity that I could. I was just obsessed, absolutely obsessed.
We were talking outside about like all or nothing personalities, addictive personalities, searching for that adrenaline, searching for that buzz. And that's going to be apparent talking about this topic. And I can relate to many of those things. Just talking outside there about I've banned myself for a month here, a month there on good old Bet365. And I've even self-excluded myself for 6 years, only 6 years later to get an email saying, you're back in. And off I go again and start just throwing money down the toilet. So I perhaps not to your level, I don't know, we'll find out. But I certainly understand the within the veteran, not within the veterans, within the forces, lads gambling, some shape or form. When did you join up then?
So I joined in May '98, and as you say, the gambling in the forces. If I look then, so you know yourself, you join up, you get given the tour around HMS Raleigh, into the automat, around the NAFI and the automat, and I walked into that automat. There's about 40 fruit machines all around the outside of the walls, lads queued up playing at him, laughing, banter, cheering. There was a real excitement around gambling. Now, if you think I started at 9, I've just been told for 9 years what I'm doing is ridiculous, what I'm doing is wrong, but I'm now seeing hundreds of lads in the Navy from all over the country, they're doing just that. So that completely normalised it. And I then just thought, what I'm doing is right. It's okay to be doing it. So, and I think that's where it really escalated. If we look at, banks and building societies, because you're in that, 22-year contract, secure employment, they offered loans, credit cards as soon as you join up. Lloyd's Bank are giving you a brief on what you can borrow. But also, if you look at the ego, because I'm now in the armed forces, the stress of training, the peer pressure, you're encouraged to take risks. You're in the forces. Push yourself outside your comfort zone. Push the boundaries. All of those things play into that gambling mentality of give it a go.
I've never looked at it like that. Yeah, it's frightening, but it makes so much sense. Go back to 9 years old. Yeah. Tell me what risks how are you getting money?
So my mum would have the big old whiskey bottles. I don't know if you had one massive whiskey bottle, and all of the pound coins, 50p's, 20p's, whatever, when she was feeling flush would go in, coppers, and it would be full up. What I would do is empty the whole bottle, take the pound coins out, put it all back in, and off we go down to the arcade. Once that started running out, I'd go through my mum's purse. Every time she left her handbag somewhere, I would go through, take money out. If we went around to family, I would ask, grandparents or auntie, uncle for money. If they wouldn't give it to me, I'd look around their house trying to take it. Absolutely anywhere that I could.
All with the purpose of going to the slot machines. Do you mean like the 2p machines?
Yeah, the fruit machines. So they were, I think the very first one that I played was a 2p Donkey Kong fruit machine, but that then went up to the 10p, 10p a spin, and then as the years went on, obviously went 20p, 50p, pound a spin. But yeah, the very first one, and people always say, how did it take hold? Why at 9 years old would it? And obviously I've done a lot of work already now, and when I look, I was that really annoying child, constantly wanting to go home. I'm bored, can we go now, can we go? So what that was doing was causing arguments between my mum and her boyfriend. So we were at a caravan park, really luxurious, I know, classy, keep it classy. And they were in the adult entertainment side. And I would be going in saying, can we go? That caused arguments. My sisters then would feel that, and everybody's in a bad mood. We're all being marched home. But that night when I first gambled, everybody was happy. So because I'm, occupied, and we were talking about that compulsive nature, my brain doesn't stop. When I gamble, my brain stops. And I'm the calmest I ever feel. So, I'm occupied, they're happy, everybody's happy. So actually, if we look, it's not a conscious thing at 9 years old, but there must have been something that went, that is brilliant, solves absolutely everything, not about the money.
Yeah, because you're not, 2p machines or whatever. Can you remember being around that age and what the feeling was of like winning and losing?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I always remember winning the first £2 jackpot, because it was 2p ago, but £2 jackpot. And you had to gamble up the sort of trail, and it was hit. Man, and then all the money comes out and all the other kids come over, so you've got £2 in 2p's or £2 in 10p's, and all the other kids are around you and you're the popular one. And I think that plays a massive part as well. So at school, maybe not the most popular kid, or you didn't feel you were, you maybe weren't part of the clique or part of the gang, but all of a sudden you're that centre of attention, so it's really interesting how that early win, especially a big early win, creates a mind map for you where you'll always go back to. So even when you lose everything you own, your mind will still go back to, but remember when I put £10 on and I won £2,000. Your mind will always go back there, so that's and that's normally an early, whether early in childhood, but early in your gambling sort of, if you were using a casino site for the first time on your phone, quite often, and I'm not encouraging anybody to sign up, but quite often you will have an early win. Is that by accident or is that designed?
I got two different experiences of gambling. One is going into a casino, having beers with the missus, with the lads, and just playing roulette, but not going in, not focusing on I need to win money. It's just fun, and I can differentiate that and know my limits and whatever. The difference is, and we'll talk about it later, but we'll talk about it now, is on your phone, football, sticking money on to win pretty much nothing, but trying to win 100 quid for the day, and often winning 60, 70, 80 pounds a day and thinking fantastic, knowing the feeling that I get from going, I've just won 80 quid, but knowing full well tomorrow that's going straight back on and I'm going to lose it. But I know that. Yeah. But it's that hit, it's that feeling of
it's a dopamine, isn't it? We all chase a dopamine, and there's a couple of really good videos out there. Dr. Nutt is one of them, and he has a guy called Tony Franklin in an MRI scanner, and the parts of the brain that light up constantly. But it's as much in the anticipation as it is the actual playing. So the walk into the bookies, the walk into the casino, the signing onto your phone. And I think you just made a good point about it being on your phone. I just talked about the fruit machines in HMS Rally. The MOD are making a big thing at the minute about, we've removed all the machines out of most bases and everywhere. But the reality is that's because those machines weren't making money anymore. Lads are now sat in single living accommodation, potentially homesick, potentially lonely. So what don't we do in the forces? We don't talk about that stuff because that's soft. We're not going to go and say, I'm really missing home, really struggling. We're not. We're going to sit in our room and we're going to look for an escape, whether that be alcohol. And, the MOD, again, didn't accept the alcohol problem till, a couple of years ago. And it's now a gambling problem. They're sat in their pads in their rooms, and they're also, the younger lads are from a gaming generation. So we can talk about gaming in a bit, because the loot boxes, the FIFA player packs, the Fortnite skins, Roblox, where they're creating their own games, and other children are buying into that game with their cryptocurrency. That cryptocurrency can then be used via a VPN, by downloading a VPN. Children are using that cryptocurrency on stake.com. So if you're one of those children that has now joined up at 18, 17, 16, and you're in a room on your own, in an army barracks or in a naval base, and you're in a room on your own, what's your coping mechanism is to take a risk to get reward. So, yeah, you can see the pathway. Clear.
One thing we spoke about outside, and I can relate to this, and this is where I've had to proper smack myself around the head. It's not the losing, a few quid at the weekend. It's what it does by taking over your life because of this stupid thing. And I can tell you now, in the past, when I've been at my lowest, particularly because there's a correlation there coming out of Hasler, being the problems that I had over 5 years, which was my low point, which many people know about, but was gambling as well. And it wasn't the losing the money, because I didn't really have money to lose. It was the on my phone all the time. Should be playing with the kids. Yeah. Hang on a minute, and I'm on my phone because I'm waiting for that goal to go in some Belgium women's second division game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I said to you outside that it's something that cripples me to this day. It's the time, because people will often ask, what's your biggest loss? Meaning money, because everybody's obsessed with the money, that it's all about money. And my biggest loss is time with my children. My biggest loss is just stable relationships, normal relationships. And I can remember I moved to Penryn at one point, down in Cornwall, with my daughter, my youngest daughter. We moved into a flat together. She came to live with me, and she loved rugby, absolutely loved it. And she was brilliant at it. And from my bedroom window, I could see the rugby club. And I could see my daughter over there kicking the ball over the posts, going up, getting the ball, bringing it back, putting it on the tee. And I'm stood in the window gambling. And all that girl wanted is for me to go and be there and encourage her and pick the ball up, take it back for her, maybe give her a few tips on, what she was doing. That's all she craved. But she would never tell me, because kids don't. They just get on with it. And there's one bit of a story that it is really, really crippling. And I won a large amount of money one day, I don't know, 10,000 say. And I've gone home and I've bought them everything, because that's what we do. To replace that time, I would just buy stuff. I'd buy them an iPad, buy them a laptop, buy them a phone, watch, whatever. So I bought them everything and brought it all home. Look at Dad, he's brilliant, isn't he? He loves you. And I did. But the next day, like you just said, you lose it all, because ultimately you do. I've taken a credit card out. My wife has been informed by the bank, you've taken a credit card. And we started having the massive row, because she thought I still had 10 grand. Now, my children are upstairs hearing this argument. They have then blamed themselves for asking for too much, for being selfish, and they're packing that stuff back away. Now, that isn't just at the time that affects them. That affects them to this day. They're 25, 24 and 21. If I offer to help them out with money, especially my son, I'll help you get a car, or I'll help you get whatever. No, I'm fine, thanks, I'm fine. That mental torture for them continues to this day. So people can make it about money. It's not. It is the time you lose. But it's that impact on the affected others, my children, my ex-wife, Yeah, it's big.
That's hard hitting. And that's slightly away from gambling, but going back to technology. And we've spoken about this on other podcasts. And it's when I look at holistic health and what I do, and I am fucking guilty of this, and it's a constant battle, getting your head out of technology and your phone, whether it's work, email, something, because you've got a little person playing there who will not be little all the time. Yeah. One day they'll grow up and they'll be gone. And I have to remind myself of it. And it goes back to, I've been in the past, like I said, betting on some shite-ass game on a Sunday afternoon. I should be playing with the kids. So I get it. What So from joining up at 18, but you've gone from gambling at 9 and whatever. Go through those years as you lead up. You know, you presumably go down the pub now. You're 16, 17.
Yeah. So I about 13. I was a county cricketer, so I loved cricket, absolutely obsessed. Probably an A-level student, you know, A's in most subjects. And 13, 14 started working at a local hotel, doing some dishes, pots and pans out the back. My mum worked there, very much a family, you know, kind of environment. So that was giving me some money in. That was getting it a little bit. Gambling was getting even more so then, going on to the pound a spin or 50p. At 16, 17, I was missing GCSEs, wouldn't even turn up. I think the French one, I just went, I'm not even going. And I just didn't care. All I cared about was getting to the arcade. But I then started working on the bar as well. So I was already about 6 foot tall. And of course, back then, we're talking 95, you get away with it a bit more, family-run hotel. And he had some antique tills. So, you know, a big function like a wedding, people would order £40 round of drinks, and I'd just press 0 on the till. But in my head, I'm thinking, right, the till owes me 40 quid. So by the end of the night, especially within a few months of doing that, I was taking £500. This is in 95, 96. I couldn't wait for Monday morning to be down outside of that arcade. So I've started college to do a GMVQ in business and admin, probably using 10% of my capabilities again to just scrape by, get through, get a merit, get a distinction, whatever. And all I cared about again was getting back down to the arcade. And I think I'll go down there 9 till 10, go to college at 10, do a few hours and go to work. And I'd be in there all day some days. You know, I'd be in there till 6 o'clock till they wanted to close.
Slot machines?
Yeah.
Yeah, as in the old just fruit machines?
Yeah, just standard fruit machines, £70 jackpot they were back then. They opened up the kind of, you know, 18 plus side with the £100 jackpots. And nobody would question me. You know, the lady who worked in the arcade, that was just a job to her, wasn't it? You know, nobody ever said, excuse me, you're in here all day long. You're in here every day. Is there a problem? You know, so because again, if we take, it's bad enough now with the stigma and people not understanding it as an addiction. Back then, definitely wasn't seen as a problem. You know, apart from the old man in the bookies. If you ask somebody, who would you describe as a problem gambler or gambling addict, would be the old man in the bookies with smoke billowing out of the bookies. Yeah. You know, and whereas nowadays, it's anyone and everyone.
Yeah, and I guess like the secret gamblers, like I'm a secret gambler. I do say to the missus, I'm just going to have an afternoon, have a look at the football and do some in play. And I've had snags in the past where I've just been ignoring people, but I wouldn't tell anyone that in the past I've done. I'd be like at a family event and I'm just popping to the toilet. No, I'm going to put a fucking bet on. What are you doing? Like, you got problems, you know. And it took me a while to realise that. But fortunately, we're not talking large amounts of money. But it's not just about the money, like we just said. It's the taking you away. Yeah. It's the control. Incidentally, going back a minute. So remember you said about monitoring the brain and the dopamine hit and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. There's a really interesting documentary I saw not so long ago with Paul Merson. You aware of that one?
Yep.
So Paul Merson being former Arsenal England footballer. Oh, it was emotional watching that and really raw and eye-opening to understanding for someone who watches this and go, what? I don't get it. Why? What? You know, you watch how it affects the brain and they did those little experiments on him. Heartbreaking to watch that it was. So, I mean, worth watching, I guess, for anyone as a understanding point.
And I think for, you know, that is a good one because he will talk about drugs. Yeah. We'll talk about alcohol. Gambling keeps coming back to him. Yeah. You know, it's the one that he really, really struggles with. Yeah. And it's because it's it's the easiest hidden one. You know, if he was to go back to drugs today or alcohol today, he knows people are going to see that instantly. So he might say that actually it's gambling that he comes back to, but that's simply because he can gamble today and for the next 6 months, nobody would have a clue. You know, it's not until you're at crisis point and you financially devastated yourself, your family and everybody else that anybody knows about it. So that's why he'll keep going back to gambling. You know, it's the same for myself today. If I thought, okay, I just need something, I'm struggling, I can't deal with my high emotions because I struggle with that, I need to use something, I'm going to use gambling, not drink. Because if I use alcohol, my partner's going to know straight away later on, I've slipped and I now had a drink. But if I gamble, she's not going to know for ages. So, you know, that's why it's so difficult to break.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So we go back to that all or nothing nature that we spoke
Yeah,
about
yeah.
outside. So my background is rowing, I don't know if you know. So I used to row very competitively, or indoor rowing, and that was my addiction. That was my
Right.
addiction. I went to World Championships. And when I got that taken away from me because I was injured, so after 4 years, that's when my world started to crumble, because I had the one thing that I had control of that gave me the highs, the lows, the addiction, the dopamine, the everything, the endorphins. When that got taken off me, funnily enough, I found another thing: drinking, alcohol, and gambling. Yeah. And then in recent years, so last December, I made a little comeback, and going back into that exercise and that mindset, it just reminded me of the addictive nature that I've got, because I went and raced at the British Championships again. I did a 12, 14 week build up where I was all in. And that's what I mean, all or nothing.
Yeah.
I was all in. So that can come with other side effects as well. But of course, that's where exercise comes in. And that's, of course, what we promote and how it can help.
Yeah, we were talking, as you say, and it is one of those that I will go all or nothing.
Yeah.
So like now I've put some weight on, I put a couple of stone on in about 3 months. And then next week, I might make that snap decision. I'm going to get back on the exercise bike. I might get a treadmill in, and I will obsess over it. I'll get on the treadmill 3 times a day. I'll get on the bike twice a day, and I'll eat next to nothing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I'll drop it all, and everybody goes, "You're looking amazing. You're looking really well." And that lasts for about 3-4 months, and then I start putting it back on. You know, so it is hard. It can't be good on the body, and it's not good for your mental health, because as I put weight on, that's where your self-esteem goes, that's where your confidence goes. So obviously in the past year, I've been standing up, giving talks at places, delivering training. And I've noticed in the last 3 months, I've really started to struggle a little bit. I'm getting up, I'm questioning myself, because I'm thinking maybe people are judging my size and my appearance.
You said that before coming in here, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were concerned.
Yeah.
And I said to you, the complete opposite. I said to you, I run a holistic health and wellness coaching program. I can be quite harsh, but generally this is quite a pink and fluffy coaching program. The clues in the title, wellness is in the title. The clues in the title, we look after people, and you know, having these conversations. I mean, people watching this probably think I'm a right mess, because I've already spoken about my history in depth, which is why I built this program. But yeah, I'm chucking a bit of gambling now as well.
No, definitely.
So tell me about, that was a hell of an intro, by the way. So tell me about your service history. Joined in 98, and then what did you get up to?
Joined May 98. My first draft was HMS Drake in the UPO, Unit Personnel Office. I was a writer, I was a shiny ass, as they would call it, you know, just pushing a pen most of my day. And then I went to SM2, which was a submarine UPO, looked after a couple of submarines. Then it was HMS Chatham, HMS Campbelltown, HMS Cumberland, all Type 22s out of GUS, out of Plymouth. Then I went to FOST, Flag Officer Sea Training, went to and finished off, my last ship was HMS Endurance, down in Antarctica.
In what year?
2008, 2009, so the year that it sank. It wasn't my fault. I can take the blame for a lot, but that wasn't my doing.
12 years, 13 years?
13 years, yeah.
What rank were you?
I was still an AB. I was just going to say I had my CW papers raised. So HMS Endurance. This is where gambling, or you know, this behaviour is so detrimental to your career, your life, everything. Because I had no idea that the logistics officer thought anything of me at all. I just thought I was a squote who keeps drinking, getting into trouble. He's in, you know, a lot of trouble. And I can remember one night I went to go for a cigarette about 2:00 in the morning. We're in Antarctica, bright sunshine still, so I'm just happily going along for a fag. The deputy logistics officer was doing his midnight rounds, and he said, "Go to bed, Gallie, you're drunk." I said, "What are you going on about? I'm going for a fag." And this has gone on, and he's let me go for a cigarette, come back in, wanted to send an email. So I'm trying to get in the ship's office, scrambling the safe, drunk, absolutely minging. And he said, "Look, I'll let you in, send an email, then you're done." So I went in, sent a really bad email home. I don't know what was in it, still to this day. Come back out, and I was still telling him to do one. I was still telling him to F off. And all of a sudden, the navigating officer come down the stairs, and a big old bloke, you know, a bit like yourself, and he went, get to bed. Got up in the morning, and the diver that I was sharing, we had 2-man cabins on there, and he said, they've been in checking on you every 20 minutes. You're a nightmare. Whatever. I thought he was winding me up. Genuinely thought he was winding me up. Went for a shower, come out, and the door almost gets kicked in. The PO writer is fuming. Tells me to get up top, and went up to see the logistics officer, and she produced some CW papers. And she said, Andy, what went on? So I just briefly, what I could remember. And she said,
Sorry,
I'm not,
what's CW papers?
the commissioning papers, officer papers.
Right.
And she just said, I don't even need to bollock you. And she just ripped them up in front of me. She said, the captain only signed them yesterday. She said, I had every belief in you. She said, I was raising your papers to become an officer, and you've gone and done that. You know, and that was on the back of a day of drinking, gambling, just, you know, I was a beer boasting in the mess. 8:30 in the morning, filling the fridge up, might as well get on it whilst we're here. Yeah. All during the day, you know. So, yeah.
And why did you leave?
So, a couple of reasons. So, HMS Endurance almost sank. So that was a point where the ship was in the Magellan Straits, coming back from Antarctica towards Chile for Christmas. The chief stoker took off, I think it was a saltwater strainer lid, tank lid. It's come off, hit him in the head, and it's flooded the ship. So if you Google it, it's about £50 million worth of damage, scrapped the ship. And at that point, I just thought, do you know what? I blame the forces for my gambling. I blame the forces for my drinking, for my behaviour, for how I am, everything. And actually now it's a little bit scary as well. 3 young kids. Do you know what? I'm going to leave. I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to sort myself out. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So that was one reason. The other reason was the Killick PTI on board. JPA had come in, the new pay system. And he couldn't get his head around this online system. So he's like, Andy, do you mind putting the fitness tests on for me? I was like, yeah, no worries, mate. So what do? Update my own, didn't I? And I got back to, it would have been fine if we stayed on board and it hadn't sank. So, you know, but I got to Coldrose down in Cornwall, and the chief writer said, you're on the promotion board, or you're on the, you know, but they're questioning your fitness test. And I was like, yeah, what about it? He's like, well, it was the day the ship sank.
Yeah, winner.
And I was like, who goes and updates a date for the date the ship was sinking? Yeah. At least think it through. But that's what I do, that impulsive. You don't think things through. So he's then gone, this doesn't seem right, mate, but we'll have to get hold of the Killick PTI. And I'm like, oh, just don't bother, just whatever. And I've gone upstairs in the office and I've just put my notice in. I just told him, don't bother, and put my notice in.
Who was the PTI?
That was Johnny Platt.
I know Johnny.
Yeah, little stocky Johnny Platt. Absolutely sound bloke, but couldn't do JPA to save his life. And I think he tried to help me a few times on board and just went, you know. He
was a Cornish lad, wasn't he?
Yeah, Red Roof. So he used to play rugby league down there as well.
Yeah. So that's you chitting instead then, and off you go.
Yeah.
And then, so that's 2008.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the...
2011 I left.
Oh, 11, sorry.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for this juicy bit that I don't know about. So keep going.
So 2011 I left. I got a job at Red Roof Rugby Club. I've seen that on your bio. Yeah, they were in National 1 at the time. Loved it. Absolutely. So I went in as the administrator at first. They were in financial trouble as well. General manager was on his way out. You know, they trying to go more volunteer, try and save the club. It was in financial devastation. And so all of a sudden that role has developed into operations manager, then general manager. And I was over there all the time. I absolutely loved it. I was always a football fan. And as soon as I got over there, I fell in love with rugby, big time. I become more of a part of the club than I ever would have thought. My problem was I come out with a resettlement grant, the half pension, you know, a bit of money. And I was gambling from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon down in Betfred in Red Roof. And I go back to the club at 4 o'clock and start work, because that's when all the volunteers come in. So you're having meetings at 8, 9, 10 o'clock, exec meetings at night. Then you go for a drink after that. You know, so it's that role and that job, although I loved it, was probably a catalyst for the drinking especially, and the behaviour. You know, because I think as well, just going back quickly, so leaving in 2011 and thinking that life was going to be rosy, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get everything else. I did get a job. What I didn't bank on was the emotional toil of that transition period out of the forces. And it's one thing I talk a lot about now, because everybody builds it up. I'm leaving, I'm going to get out, I can't wait, it's going to be really good, I'm going to do this transition partnership course.
I'm going to be a tree surgeon.
Project manager is a big one at the minute. I'm going to do this.
Tree surgeon back in my day.
Everyone was a tree surgeon. It goes through phases, doesn't it? But what they don't talk about, they put so much money into turning you from a civvy to sailor, but what they don't put effort into is sailor to civvy. And I'm talking mentally, so again, where I'd say we've got a bravado nature, alpha male nature in the forces, that we don't talk about stuff whilst we're in, and we don't talk about what you're going to feel when you get out. So that loss of sense of purpose, that loss of identity. But then you look at the practical nature of it. So I moved out of married quarters. We were £180 at the time for a 3-bedroom house in Helston.
Yeah.
I've now got to find private rent, which was £1,100-1,200 in Falmouth. So my rent's gone up by £1,000 a month. My income's gone down by £2,500 a month. And you've only got this small pot of money, a pension really, to manage that. Now, what's a fix for that? Gambling could become a fix for that. But we don't talk enough about, you could get out and be offered a job as CEO of Barclays Bank. If your head isn't in the right place and you're not fitting into that workplace culture because the banter isn't accepted, because maybe your vocabulary doesn't fit into that workplace, you feel so lonely. And I always talk about it as though you've been picked up from somewhere and placed in a foreign country where you don't know the language, you don't know the religion, you don't know the culture, and you're left alone. That's what leaving the forces is like for some people. And it's a scary, scary time. So anyway, I've gone to the rugby club, drinking, and my first marriage, so I got married in 98. 3 children, and that marriage lasted for 15 years somehow. I absolutely take my hat off to her and apologise massively to her. We don't communicate now, we don't talk at all. But, just the abuse she must have gone through. And it's hard for me to talk about, but domestic abuse is a real danger within gambling addiction. We've got emotional abuse, but also financial abuse. So as I said earlier, we've gone from £10,000 one day to no money for milk or nappies the next day. The next day we got £3,000 again. The next day we're taking out a loan. So that financial abuse, and sort of if she ever started getting close to calling me out on my gambling, to knowing about my gambling, I would throw out accusations of infidelity. I already had a bit of an issue with jealousy. I've always had that from childhood. Certain things went on in childhood that, contributed to that. So what I would do is if she said, you've been gambling again, I know you have, yeah, well, you've been off cheating. I would throw anything. It's the gaslighting, the narcissism. It's hard to talk about. I don't talk about it blasé just because, so what? I talk about it because it's real. And if there's a partner out there today listening to this that's suffering that, please talk to us. Talk to you, talk to me, talk to anybody. Because it happens 50, 60, 100, 200 times before people ask for that help. And it is real, and you are going through it. So there's been a lot. So as I say, we're now at the rugby club. I then met my second wife. I left my first wife in September 13, went out that night. So I went to my mum's, dropped all my stuff off, got her to iron me a shirt, and off I went out drinking. And I've met Vic that very night. So I've told her I've been separated for 6 months, still in that position. And from that night on, we started a relationship. So a 15-year marriage ended at 10 o'clock that morning, new one started 10 o'clock that night. And we were then together for 5 years, got married, and same behaviour towards her, same behaviour in general. And we moved away to London. So I got a job with the Not Forgotten Association. A Brigadier James Stopford was CEO there at the time. And I went for a database manager job or something it was, randomly. Just, I'll do that. I'll wing it. Look on Google on the way up, YouTube, I'll pass the interview. And I didn't, but he said, look, I love you. I think you're brilliant. Can you come and work? We'll sort a job out. And it ended up being in finance and as the office manager. Within probably a couple of weeks, I'd noticed some loopholes, some insecurities. I was in the bookies every single day down at Victoria Station. So I was working in Grosvenor Square at the time, the big buildings up the end near St James's Palace. And I was in the bookies every day. I was going to the casino at night. I was going home and on my phone. And all of a sudden, I'm out of money.
What are you betting on?
So at this point, were the fixed odd betting terminals. So the fob teas that they're known as, the crack cocaine of gambling. So in the bookies, you've got a machine that has fruit machines in them, slots that they now call them, roulette, blackjack, a whole raft of games on one machine. So what would happen is I'd play the slots. If I won the £500 jackpot, I'd go on to roulette, because roulette was your quickest way of up or down. And that was always the pattern. But what would happen is the bookies could only fulfill it so much. You might win a couple of grand, but actually that's not doing it anymore. Very much like with alcohol, you start off with 4 or 5 pints, quite happy, chilled, or 2 pints if you're a booty, and then you're written off, aren't you? But and it's the same with gambling. That tolerance level, I go from £10 a bet is keeping me happy, then 20, then 50, then 100, then 1,000, to the point I wouldn't go in the bookies unless I had 2 grand in my hand, because I'm just not going to fulfill that need. And so then it goes online. So once you're online, those stake limits are ridiculous. And I can remember at one stage, I would go on slots, win a big amount of money, and then I'm on roulette, winning bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden I'm playing £2,500 a spin on roulette. And that's not even the maximum stake. Like when people talk about gambling, some of these sites have £10,000 a spin stake limits.
On the click of a button on your phone.
Every 30 to 40 seconds.
Did you ever bet on football?
So I would do. My problem was I always needed instant gratification.
Yeah.
So same as everything in life, it's impulse.
Yeah.
Everything is impulsive. So
spin it.
Yeah, I needed instant gratification. So even a horse race, I would bet on a 5 furlong race because that's over in seconds, but I wouldn't bet on a 2.5 mile race.
Yeah.
Because that's taking way too long. Football took too long.
It's interesting how our brains operate. Like I've never bet on a horse race. Well, I've bet on a horse race, but I've never, like I do in football, I've never done slot machines other than the odd couple of quid in a pub or something. I've never done what you're saying. Football. And I would always look at like sticking a 10, 20 quid on to be a goal to win 6 quid and then build it up. And, I've done it plenty of times. You get 100 quid and then you just, the next day is gone. So it's not extreme measures like you, but it's funny how so that was my fix of the thrill of watching my phone on an animated screen. I'm not even watching the game and I'm just sat like this for 45 minutes waiting for it to go goal. How fucking sad's that?
Yeah, and it is. But you'll always have your thing. People will have slots. People will have whatever. My last one was video poker. £125 a hand, and that was every 2 to 3 seconds. You press it, hold 2 cards, on you go, and that was £125. When you think about it now, it's mad, and it wasn't my money, and that's what we'll go on to now, I'm assuming.
Just quickly then. So I know you said before it's not about the money, but it is, but it isn't. What's the biggest you've ever won and what's the biggest you've lost?
So £127,000 was the biggest I won.
On?
That was on a slot, a progressive slot. So
physically or online?
Online, but it was quite a few years ago, quite near, I would say, the beginning of the online generation. And they used to have nationally linked slots, if you know what I mean. So they, Paddy Power would have theirs or Ladbrokes would have theirs, and they all link in. So it was back really quite a lot of years ago, and it was £127,000, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. I'd only put about £200 on, say only. It's ridiculous amounts when you think about it, but put 200 quid on. And I couldn't tell my wife because she had told me, if you ever gamble again, you're out. And we have 3 children, very young children, so I'm thinking, well, what can I tell her? So I thought,
just when you won the money?
Yeah. So I thought, I can't tell her, I'm going to be out the door. So I thought, what I'll do tomorrow is I'll tell her I bought a lottery ticket and I've had a big win. Because as today, as with everything, the lottery is seen as, that's acceptable, isn't it? If I told you today I still play the lottery, well, that's fine, isn't it? It's just a lottery. but it's not. Quite big. So I thought I'd tell her I've won the lottery, 127 grand. Life will be good. We were in Hunter Close in Plymouth at the time, up at Taylor Road, and the married quarters were being sold for £40,000. So I thought we could buy 3 of those, and rent them out, 3-bedroom houses for 40 grand. So I had all these plans in my head, went to bed, couldn't settle, and I'm just thinking about it. And at midnight, I've got back up. So
tell me you haven't got up and put that on.
100%.
Are you fucking kidding me?
100%.
I was going to say it as a joke.
Yeah, no, I got back up at midnight, and back then you could reverse your withdrawal. So I asked to withdraw it, and it said, I went to put £100 on, I think. I thought, so what? It doesn't matter. And it said, why put more deposit when you can just reverse your withdrawals? Oh, brilliant idea. I'll reverse 3 grand. I'll reverse 5, and no word of a lie, by 3 o'clock that morning it had all gone. And I put everything in the bank on top to try and get back again, because I thought they're bound to give it back to me. I'll just put what I've got left on. And so you imagine you're sat downstairs, you haven't slept, you've gone through all of that, you're beating yourself up, and your wife and children get up. So your children come down, morning, Dad, and laughing, joking. Your wife gets up, and you're sat there thinking, none of them know. You've got no support network, because I can't say, by the way, I've just done 127 grand. You can't tell anybody. So you're dealing with that yourself up here. You've got nobody to turn to, nowhere to go. And what happened is I had my first attempt on my life that day. You cannot take that guilt. You cannot take that shame. When you look at your family and you think, we could have, we should have, we would have, had that, and you haven't because of your actions. They're my actions, they're my choices. All of this I talk about today, completely my choices. But they're heavily weighted choices because of how the industry works and the tactics they use. So there's a balance there. I'll never be a prohibitionist, because I think a lot of people use it in a healthy way. But for those of us that can't, I just expect a little bit more, empathy from them, and a little bit more understanding to say, actually, you've got a problem, can we help? That night, I should never have been allowed to reverse that much money. So this was another key point with the forces, actually, because obviously my DLO then has said to me, what's gone on? We've got you in with a CPN, a psychiatric nurse. What's gone on? And I said, it's gambling. He said, well, you need to stop. So brilliant, I haven't thought of that. Thanks very much. Best advice I've ever received. And he then said, I said, no, it's an addiction. It's a real problem. And he said, mate, you're a writer. He said, you're in charge, or not in charge, but you've got access to some pretty sensitive material. I will have you out in a week for financial irresponsibility. So what did I do? I buried it. I just kept it to myself and said nothing for the rest of my career. So had he received training, or if he was aware, or if he had listened to this podcast at that time, if this podcast was around, maybe he would have handled that differently. But, that's where we were back then. And he didn't understand. So he's just like, don't know, I'm uncomfortable, I'll have you out. Because what happens is with debt and with the money side of things, you're a security risk. So you're going to use your security clearance. Same with the police, same with any of the services. So I can understand that side of it. But what I wanted are the forces to think, actually, I've spent 500 grand training that guy up. He's got 10 years of service, or 5, 6, 8 years of service. We need to retain him. So actually, can we get him some help? Can we get him fixed and safe enough that he comes back in? You've saved some trained strength. So that's, we'll go on to that in a minute, what I now do and why we do that. But yeah,
that's mad.
It's mad.
And also that lack of understanding, and wasn't that long ago, 20... No.
So that would have been 2004, so about 20 years ago.
Okay.
So it was a decent time
But
ago.
still. And I'd like to think things have changed, and obviously we'll talk about the charity and whatnot that you do. But yeah, that amount of money was, I thought you were going to say, I don't know why I thought you were going to say something different, but then, just to go and spunk it all again, which you would have done the next day, the day after. It was always going to happen, wasn't it?
Yeah, we talk about it. It's like the bookies, I was the safest bet for them, because they knew they could let me win £500,000 today,
Yeah.
because they know they're getting 501,000 back next week.
Yeah.
For them, it's a very short-term loan
Yeah.
coming back with interest.
Yeah.
They knew it was. There's no risk to them, no risk whatsoever. And they knew they can identify a problem gambler within seconds with their, especially nowadays with the AI technology.
Yeah.
They'll flag me up as a problem straight away. And we look out at Vegas where they call you the whales, don't they? You know, we got a whale, we massive better, and they'll look after him. They'll put him in a luxury room. They'll look after you.
Yeah.
That was the same with us. I used to get tickets to Old Trafford. I get tickets to the Ashes, one of the Ashes tests. I love cricket, you know, so I get tickets to that. They take you along because he knows I'm going to bet about 3-4 grand that day minimum. So I've paid for my ticket anyway, haven't I? You know,
I still can't get my head around how you're earning the money. So you're not getting paid a lot at Red Rose, but you're still managing to just go and bet large amounts of money. How does the maths work on this?
all right. No need to grass me up, you know. But no. Look, whilst I was at Red Roof, I said I had the half pension resettlement, whatever. There was money coming in, but obviously once I hit the NFA, and I was talking about sort of seeing loopholes or what have you. So I've lost all my wages, as I do, the day after payday, day of payday sometimes. My wife was due to move up, so I was now living in London in a flat in Queen's Park, but we were renting a house out in Chatham, of all places, Brompton, in between Chatham and Gillingham. So all of this move was happening. I thought, she's going to know. I've got nothing in the bank. I've got no money to pay for the rental van to move us up. What am I going to do? So I've used some of the petty cash, and it was the thinking of, well, I'll use that now, payday, I'll top it back up. That will at least get me through this month. I need to stop that because that's going to be risky. It's just getting ridiculous. And I took that £500 on the way home. I thought, right, I'll put that in the bank, then I'll transfer it for the van and all this lot. I went into the bookies at Victoria Station, and I thought, well, if I could just double it, I could put the 500 back, plus I've got the 500, I'm all right. Actually, the £500 went. Within 20 minutes, I'm back in the office. It's all locked up. I've gone back into the office, opened it up, opened the safe, another 500. Well, if I make that 1,500, I can pay the 1,000 back. I've still got the 500. That was gone. Next thing, the petty cash wasn't so petty. It was about £3,000. It's all gone. And so my wages have gone on payday. The £3,000 gone the day after payday. And I have no way of putting that back in. I am just spiraling, and the thing is with, people will say, well, how did you have money for drink? That was because, to gamble, like I just said to you, my tolerance was I needed a couple of grand to get the buzz. I'm always going to have 20 quid to go and get a shed load of cheap cans of lager or a couple of bottles of wine. And that's what I would do. Drink, forgotten all about it that night because otherwise I wouldn't sleep. Next day I've got up and I'm thinking, what can I do? And honestly, the chain of events genuinely aligned to me ending up committing a massive, massive fraud. So the head of events was off to Breckenridge, I think it was, to go out skiing. And the head of finance was retiring. So next thing, both of them have given me their bank logins. I've also got my bank login. So I was raising the invoice, raising the payment and releasing the payment. Straight away, I thought I can raise one for £3,000. I'll withdraw the cash, put it back in the petty cash, and just hope nobody sees that one invoice. So I changed the bank details on the invoice. I did do that. And then I thought, well, actually, if they haven't noticed that one, I could do 1,500. That will square my wages. And then I'm back to square one. And the relief and this is what I'm going to do. Literally within 3 or 4 months, I had taken £47,500. Plus there was other cash and things going on and everything else. But I was convicted of fraud for £47,500. I was working in Buckingham Palace, garden parties, and then I moved also on to St James's Palace. And so all of this has literally just gone wild. I didn't have anybody go to court with me because my wife was a chartered accountant for the Building Society Association. So a fraud conviction was really going to go down well there. I didn't speak really to family at the time. I didn't have anybody. But I also couldn't have a solicitor because I didn't qualify for legal aid because I'd earned too much, but I'd also lost everything, so I couldn't afford one. So I've rocked up to Southwark Crown Court on my own, and as you're walking up a long stretch of road, and all you could hear were the flashes of the cameras. And I'm like, there must be somebody big coming behind me here. And it wasn't. It was me. And I thought, I'm on my own. What do you do? So I've gone up, and I've just sat on the wall next to them. And I've said, look, if you want a photo, like, at least come and take a decent one. I didn't know where to look, what to do. It's nerves, it's, you know. And so I've gone into court. The judge has given me a 2-year suspended sentence, told him I'm going to get help, I'm going to sort my life out. I've got help sorted out. I've told him everything that he needed to hear, and he gave me the chance. And, basically I went home, that marriage come to an end, moved back to Cornwall with my daughter, and I met a new partner. So I've carried on, got a new job. I was committing fraud. I won't go into it too much, but I was committing fraud again. This was literally within months of being on suspended sentence. And life was just spiralling again. Drink, gambling, hiding it, lying, you know, the toxicity at home, the emotional abuse, financial abuse, constant. And so I've stopped drinking for about, I think, 9 weeks. We started going to relationship counselling. I knew I needed help to just try and get a grip on what I'm doing. And we were getting on like house on fire. So we'd gone for a night out, murder mystery night. And I've had 2 bottles of wine, Jaeger bombs, because I couldn't just have 1 glass of wine, could I, and just enjoy myself. I've had to go, let's have 2 bottles, plus Jaeger bombs, plus whatever. And we're going home in the taxi, and I was adamant, still am to this day, that she was in the front flirting with the taxi driver. So I've gone absolutely ballistic, and I've accused them both. I'm kicking off, and I've committed an ABH. There's no 2 ways about it. So it's carried on into the house, and yeah, there's been a domestic ABH, and for all of the abhorrent things I'll talk about in my life, that has to be the worst. I never ever believed for 1 minute that, you know, I would get to that level. I knew I could be abusive. I knew I could be intimidating. I knew I could be all of those things. And I've been arrested, obviously activated my suspended sentence. So I've gone from Friday night on a night out, enjoying ourselves, to Monday morning in prison in HMP Exeter. I've told the prison I need help for my gambling, only to be told it's a secondary addiction. Don't worry about that. We need to look at your alcohol. If we deal with your alcohol, your gambling will subside. And I could not, for the life of me, get through to them how I used alcohol because of my gambling. So I'm now in prison, another suicide attempt, and I've come around for it, and I thought, right, there's 2 ways to go here. I either wrap in all together and keep trying this, or I need to get my head together. So what I started doing was writing my whole life down. For cathartic reasons, I'd done a level 2 and level 3 in counselling skills through the Prison Education Trust and the Prison Officers Association, and I took every self-help book out of the library. I thought, I'm going to sort myself out. I now know there's no way of sorting myself out. We talked about it outside. I can know all of the techniques, all of, you know, what I would advise somebody else. I can't put that into practice myself, but I thought I could. So I've gambled every day in prison. But again, because it was only canteen for £1 or £2, that didn't count for me because it wasn't thousands. So I was delusional. Come out of prison thinking I'm fixed, and I'm going to be laughing.
How long did you serve?
So I served 17 months in there. That was long enough. It's the boredom. Boredom cripples you the most.
Cat C prison.
Yeah. So it was Cat B Exeter for a bit, and then Cat C in Earlstoke. And I think the biggest problem for me was everyone thought I was a copper, like 100%.
You do look like.
They're like, yeah, no, 100%. And they were like, mate, you are a copper. And I'm like, they even wrote DCI on the outside of my door, you know. And I'm thinking, I'm in trouble here if people start genuinely believing this. And so yeah, as I say, I've got out. They've put me in an AP. I've met a new partner who, you know, has stuck by me to this day. Kate, she's been pretty immense, really, to go through what we have, which I'll talk about now if you're happy with me rambling on. So I've met Kate. I've moved to Westbury in Wiltshire, where I still am now, and I started a level 4 diploma in addiction counselling, and I went to Cloud's House to ask for some volunteer hours so that I could complete my diploma. And they offered me a role. They said, look, we really like you. We think you're brilliant and we need to bring gambling on board. And 3 days later, I get a phone call to say, I'm so sorry, but because of your ABH, we're not going to be able to move forward with the job. So my life's crashed. I thought, if I can't even use my lived experience to do this, it's going to be a struggle. And I then carried on looking for jobs, found a job at a pig farm, as farm secretary, phoned up and he went, what's 8 times 7? You know, told him 56. He went, that'll do. Come in tomorrow and take over. That was the interview. So I thought, happy days, I've got a job.
I had to think I was there. There.
Using your toes as well. And he said, look, come in and take over. And I thought, okay, like, got there, absolutely minging. You know, the smell was horrendous. But all I wanted to do was work and earn money. Now, within that time in between, I'd been using the free spins. So every single email that come in, I was registering in my son's name, my daughter's name, my mum's name. Like we were talking earlier and you said you're registering somebody else's name. But because they were free spins, I wasn't classing that as gambling because I'm not risking anything. The definition of gambling is to put something at risk in hope of return for reward. Well, I wasn't risking anything, so it's not gambling. Actually, it 100% was because I was getting the same escapism. I was still curing the boredom. I was still getting that same bit of rush that I needed. And then it started with a £2 scratch card. I won 20 quid. I was on universal credit. Come out of prison, universal credit, won 20 quid. And I bought a load of picnic stuff. Turned my hand to a little bit of Mary Berry style baking from prison, believe it or not. And I started baking stuff and it was curing. Loved it. And that's what that 20 quid for me, that's what that £20 done. So I then started in the bookies with a tenner, 20 quid, 50 quid. Started the job at the pig farm, genuinely no intention of doing anything wrong whatsoever. I was, if anything, the other way. Cutting a very, very long story short, because I'm conscious of the time, within 5 months, I took £198,000. It started exactly the same way.
As in
I committed fraud to £198,000.
Selling pigs?
Yeah, he must have been selling some pigs, but it was, there is obviously big money in them, but they have big costs as well, so it was madness. It was every day was, I'll just win enough and I'll win that, I'll pay them back, I'll tell them what I've been doing, I'll walk away. Even at 60, 70,000 pounds, I knew what I owed. That's how I thought about it. I owe them 70 grand. So if I win 80, I'll give them the 70, I'll keep the 10, I'll walk away and at least we're square, And that is until the point that you don't know how much you owe. And you just absolutely spiraled. Every time the Asda delivery driver walked down the driveway, I thought it was the police coming. You see the high-vis jacket and you think, here it is. That's every single day you're living that. Every single day they've got shotguns in the office. I'm thinking they're going to get, they're going to find out, the father had been sectioned previously for, being a bit off the scale. And but that's what you're risking. It's mad. But that is where, when people say, well, you could have control over it, you could do it. I tell you what, if I could have control, I'm not going to put my own life at risk, am I, to do this, And as I said earlier, I fully 100% take every, bit of sort of criticism. They're my choices. I'm a grown man, a grown adult. But actually, when we look at adverse childhood experiences, when we look at the tactics from the industry, when we look at, all of those life experiences from the forces and everything else, it's a whole catalyst for what is going on in life, So it's difficult. So I knew at that point that I'm going back to prison. There's no two ways about it. Exact same offence. And I...
Presumably you just got caught on that.
Yeah, so it's always when you go on leave. Like, it's always the same, you know, if you haven't been doing your work, you go on leave, someone finds out, don't they? And it was the same. I went on Christmas leave, and on the printer, I had printed off I had a fine for travelling on a train without paying, I didn't have my Veterans Rail card with me. So I ended up with a £20 fine, which has turned into 500 quid, gone to court, everything. But on the back of that was my original fraud offence. So I've left that on the printer. He's seen it, Googled me and gone, shit, we better check our own accounts. They've checked their own accounts and gone, wow, like 200 grand. You know, so I've driven to Cornwall, picked a stretch on the A303, the quick passing areas there. And I thought, I'll go down, I'll tell my children, tell my mum, selfishly again, because they told me, if you ever do it again, we're writing you out of our lives. That's it, done. And that's what I hoped they would do. And on the way back, I would drive into a lorry on the 303. And they didn't. They said, look, we've read up on it. We've read up on the addiction, and we just want you to get help. You're amazing when you're good. When you gamble, you're just a different person, horrible person. And so I drove to Wiltshire, and I phoned Gordon Moody, which is a 14-week residential rehab. And within 2 months, I had a space, and I was in. I had always thought, I can't afford that. It was free. It was paid for by the National Gambling Support Network, GambleAware, and Gordon Moody and the local council. You know, and I'd done 14 weeks there. So I went in. I'll be totally honest with you, as I have been right the way throughout. I went in thinking, I'll get a lesser sentence. My children will be appeased, my mum will be happy, and my partner will stay with me. That's why I went in. I didn't genuinely believe I could break the gambling. I didn't believe I could get the help. And about week 4, my therapist called me into a room and he went, mate, I just want to say, carry on wasting your 14 weeks. I have no more time for you. You're absolutely doing my head in. If you think you're going to manipulate me, you can think again. He said, I think you have it in you, but you clearly don't want it. You clearly don't want to be here. You're here for your own reasons. He went out and slammed the door. And I went, cheeky prick, I'll show you. You know, talking to him obviously after and knowing what I know now, he knew me like the back of his hand even at that point. And the reason he knew me was because he had his own lived experience. He had lived experience of drink, drugs and gambling, lived on the streets of London for 20 years, and he gave a shit. You know, his empathy level was huge, but he also knew what I needed. And that's what triggered me. That's what done it. 100% he broke me that day. It was like a switch.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, I understand I've just rabbited on.
No, it's brilliant. We'll wrap this up in a minute because I'm aware of time, but that's incredible. That is some story. Was there a second visit to prison?
So obviously I was rehab, come out of rehab, and I was waiting then for sentencing.
Oh, okay.
So sentencing took about 16 months. In the meantime, I carried on seeking my own help. I was doing about 12 hours a week of groups, counselling, one-to-one sessions with people. I took everything in. I was taking anything from everywhere that I could. If somebody offered me help, I'm snatching their hand off. You know, I was at that stage. And I then started facilitating my own peer support group for an organisation. And I started working for the Alerts, a lived experience team, looking at what provision was out there throughout the National Gambling Support Network and saying from a lived experience point of view whether it was effective or no. And so I've been doing that right up until prison. Went into prison, got 3 years. Absolutely more than acceptable for what I took and, you know, what was there. And in the meantime, I'd released my book called HMS to HMP, which I had written, I said during the first sentence, handwritten, the whole lot, and never intended to release it. And it was only when someone read it and went, mate, you need to get that out there. It will help others. So what I'd done is I got my partner to send the governor a book. And from the other side of prison, I sent him a letter to say, can I set up peer support groups? He was an ex-paratrooper down in HMP Challenge Wood. Absolutely amazing man again. And he went, what do you need? I want you to do it. And he allowed me to run peer support groups every week. And I was also allowed to go around and support people on a one-to-one basis that said I've got a problem with gambling. I would at least just go around a bit of pastoral care, a bit of peer support, and talk to them about what we can get them when they leave. So obviously leaving prison, I was lucky to already be known a little bit in the recovery space, the gambling recovery space, and the alerts were absolutely brilliant enough to give me a job straight back. Within that job, I met somebody, Neil Platt from Beacon Counselling Trust, who then said, we've got an armed forces programme that started called Battling the Odds. Will you come and have a chat to me about maybe being involved in that? So that was a year ago, and or last July I started with them. So I'm now the Armed Forces Education Training Lead for Beacon Counselling Trust as part of the Armed Forces Gambling Support Network. So we have 5 organisations from Scotland with RCA, Beacon Counselling in Liverpool, who I work for, but I'm based down here, Bet No More in London, Break Even in the South East, and ARA in the South West. So our main aim is to deliver this awareness and prevention work to the armed forces for all those reasons I stated earlier. Yeah. So that's where we are.
This is, let me just get on my phone a question we've had. I know we've got to wrap this up, but this is from one of your colleagues called Matt, and this is to do with the Armed Forces Gambling Support Network that you've just spoken about. And we're going to drop all the links below so people can have access to this and obviously speak to. Now, Matt's asked a question, but before I read this, I gotta laugh. Matt's surname.
Yeah,
so
100%.
Matt's surname for a gambling addict is Matt Losing. I mean, you can't write that. You cannot write it.
He said it was written in the stars.
It was. So look, I've got to read this, and we need an answer because he's very kindly taken the time to send this. It's a long question, but go with it.
And he does struggle to read and write. So
right. So Matt Losing has said, you've experienced the discipline of the military and the consequences of prison, yet gambling still had a grip on you. What do you think it really took to break that cycle, and why didn't those earlier experiences stop you sooner?
I think it was 2 things. I think it was, one, my children saying, we've read up on the addiction and we want you to get help. It's sort of seeing their faces. And like we said earlier about all that wasted time with my children, I was about to waste the rest of their lives effectively, because however much they might have said, oh, well, Dad was a bit of a nightmare anyway, that was still going to affect them mentally for the rest of their life, knowing they were potentially the last people to speak to me. Imagine what that would have done to them. So that was big, massive. And it was also, I mentioned just now, John Gallie, therapist in Gordon Moody, and it was his lived experience. And I think the understanding more of lived experience in general, and having that ability to know I can use all of the crap I've talked about and all of the stuff that I've done, I can use it for good. Yeah. That really gave me a drive to go, actually, I need to warn others of this problem.
There's something about coaching or teaching something when you've been there and you've done it, and I take my hat off to you, Andy. Yeah. Listen, we could talk forever, and I know once you got going there, and that was emotional, that was raw, and no, that was mate, that was strong. And like I said, we'll drop the links below to all the good stuff that you do and all that you offer back, so people can access it. Please, anyone listening, please reach out to Andy. Go on the links below. Get hold of me. I can point you in the right direction. But mate, absolute pleasure. I've got to say, episode 16 that was for us, and I reckon that's my favourite one I've heard, because it was just I felt it. It was incredibly well delivered. So thank you very much. People that are watching this, please, Beyond the Battlefield, YouTube, subscribe to it. Hit subscribe if you're still with us now and you've listened to that. Hit subscribe, share it, tag people, do what you can to push this out, giving veterans an opportunity to voice their stories of adversity and resilience, and of course the good that people are doing in the network community. Massive thanks to Will and to Raf behind the camera at Express Media. And also, as we approach the end of episode 16, the next time that I speak, we should have a sponsor that's come in to be on the battlefield to help support this unbelievable project, which of course is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So keep yourself, listen out for that one. Andy, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it. And listen, I'm sure we'll probably do this again. So thank you very much, mate.
I honestly thank you as well. I think, you offering this platform is absolutely huge for veterans as well, for me to be able to voice it and, put it out there and hopefully help others. So yeah, what you're doing is amazing.
Top man.
So thank you.